I'm going to do a brief demonstration showing you how to do a close reading of a text. All of the text that we'll be reading this semester, you need to read very closely and interact with the text, and I'll demonstrate what I mean by interacting and having a conversation with the text. So this first recording, I'm just going to walk through my thinking process, thinking out loud about the text as I read it, and also demonstrate how to annotate the text as you read it, because as you know, we'll be reading the text. You need to understand what's going on in the text and then be able to write about the text. So your annotations, your notes, and markings will become very important when you go to write about it in your critical reading journal or in your essays. So when I talk about annotations, you can use whatever device you prefer. If you want to highlight parts of the text or use a pen or pencil, I prefer using a pen just because I can underline and also circle and make notes all at the same time and not have to switch devices. So that's my preference. And I do various things when I make annotations, and you'll see that as I move along. So the selection we're looking at is a piece that I don't believe I put on your schedule. So this is The Necklace by Guy de Maupassant. You've probably read this in high school. This is found on page 187 of your literature text if you want to look at it. So this is The Necklace, written in 1884 by Guy de Maupassant. Okay, so I'm going to start reading the first paragraph and then start making some mental notes about the text. She was one of those pretty and charming women born, as if by an error of destiny, into a family of clerks and copyists. She had no dowry, no prospects, no way of getting known, courted, loved, married by a rich and distinguished man. She finally settled for a marriage with a minor clerk in the Ministry of Education. Already in this first paragraph, we get a lot about this character. She's not named yet, she's just she. But this female character is a somewhat tragic figure. She's pretty and charming, so she's described as pretty and charming. This is a direct characterization. And she was born as if by an error of destiny. So perhaps she feels that she was not born into the right time, place, family. She is not happy with what she's been born into. She's been born instead into a family of clerks and copyists. She had no dowry, no prospects, no way of getting known, courted, loved, or married by a rich and distinguished man. Notice the things that are important in this selection. Women are looking at basically their marriage prospects. That tells us a lot about women of this time period. She's not looking for an occupation, a job, education. She just wants to find a good marriage. That tells us a lot about their values. So, as I said, that's not stated here in the text, but that's the subtext. Okay, the text is the literal, this is what it says. The subtext is what we bring to the table with our knowledge, our background, and what inferences we can make about the text based on the information that we have here. So we have the text, we have the subtext, and then you also have the context. What is the situation? What time period is this? Where is this? Okay, Ministry of Education. These are terms that are used typically for English writers. This particular writer is French, writing in Paris. But this is obviously a piece of world literature. So he's not just education department in English terms and in American terms. Okay, let's read on a little bit more about her. Before I move on, I wanted to make a note. This is what's important to women at the time. Okay, I make notes as I read, because when I come back to write about it and to think about the text as a whole. I want my notes of what I'm thinking as I go along. So that's what we're doing when we're annotating. Okay, so this is the second paragraph. She was a simple person without the money to dress well, but she was as unhappy as if she had really gone down in the world, for women have neither rank nor race. I didn't make the comment in the previous paragraph here. She finally settled for marriage. Okay, if we're saying somebody settled for marriage, she's not happy with her marriage. She obviously wanted to marry a rich, distinguished man. She didn't have the prospects or the way to marry into that class, so she settled for a simple marriage. This is also having to do with marrying, within your class, so we can see that there are some class issues here during this time. I'm going to make that word, class issues. Okay, so she was a simple person without the money to dress well, but she was as unhappy as if she had really gone down in the world, for women have neither rank nor race. In place of high birth or important family connections, she can only rely on their beauty. They can only rely on their beauty, their grace, and their charm. I get a sense that the author is being very ironic here as well, and perhaps mocking. So they being the women can only rely on their beauty, their grace, and their charm. You see a lot of that in literature of this time period, that women weren't valued for intelligence and other abilities. It was really ornamental and charm and grace, as is mentioned here. Their inborn finesse, this is an interesting thing, inborn finesse, so apparently we're just born with it. Their elegant taste, their engaging personalities, which are their only power. That's interesting too. That's their only power. Make working class women the equals of the grandest ladies. So again, we're getting a lot of information about women's place, which I would say is one of the themes, women's place in society. And we're also getting a lot of class issues, class tension, okay, tension between classes, upper class and lower class. Again, I can go back and add some more notes to myself as I read along. If through your reading, if by chance you don't know a word, if you don't know finesse or whatever, look it up. I usually circle words that are unfamiliar to myself, and then I look it up so I understand what's happening. You can pretty much figure out a lot of the words in context, but if you really don't understand the word, then it's best to look it up so you can understand what it is the author is saying. Okay, let's move on to the third paragraph. She suffered constantly, feeling herself destined for all delicacies and luxuries. So she feels she's suffering, first of all, so she's unhappy. She thought she was destined for delicacies and luxuries. She's not experiencing those, obviously. She suffered because of her grim apartment, okay, grim apartment, sounds very deathly, drab walls, threadbare furniture, threadbare is just worn out, ugly curtains, okay, so lots of things showing that she is not happy with her surroundings. All such things which most other women in her situation would not even have noticed tortured her and filled her with despair. So this is their effect on her, tortured her, filled her with despair. She's not happy with her station in life. The sight of the young country girl who did her simple housework awakened in her only a sense of desolation and lost hopes. She daydreamed of large, silent anterooms decorated with oriental tapestries and lighted by high bronze floor lamps, with two elegant valets in short pilates dozing in large armchairs under the effects of forced air heaters. She imagined large drawing rooms draped in the most expensive silks, with fine end tables on which were placed knickknacks of inestimable value. She dreamed of the perfume of dainty private rooms, which were designed only for the intimate tete-a-tetes with the closest friends, who, because of their achievements and fame, would make her the envy of all other women. So we get this very clear, okay, this is the reality of her life right here. The reality of her life is not happy. Grim apartment, drab walls, threadbare furniture. She's not happy. Other women can be happy in their situation. She's not. She's tortured, filled with despair. Um, and by contrast, this is her dream here. This is the reality. This is the dream. She daydreamed of large, silent anterooms, decorated with oriental tapestries, high bronze floor lamps, elegant valets that are just dozing in large armchairs, so really don't have to work very hard. Beautiful things surrounding her. Forced air heaters, which is common to us, but back then pretty spectacular. She imagined large drawing rooms draped in most expensive silks, so large drawing rooms with silks, lined end tables with knickknacks of inestimable value, so she wants to be surrounded by beautiful, expensive things. Perfume of dainty private rooms, designed with tete-a-tetes, so conversations with closest of friends. So she wants to be a part of a higher class of society. She wants better things in her life, and she doesn't have it. Okay. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is how, as I'm reading the text, I'm reading into what it is the author's doing. What is the author doing? He's setting up a situation of a woman who's pretty and charming, but by error of destiny was not born into the place in which she wants to be. She's sort of this tragic figure that wants so much more, wants to be wealthy, wants to be higher class, and she has settled instead for a marriage with a minor clerk, doesn't have any connections, has to rely on her beauty and grace, and the reality of her life is really not very happy or stimulating. So what is the author doing? That's what the author's doing. And then you ask how or why. Okay, let's begin with the how. He's setting up this juxtaposition right here between the reality of her life and the dream of what she wants, okay? Using these particular words. If I were writing a critical reading journal, I could say the reality of her life is really not happy. Her home is described as a grim apartment with drab walls, and I would use those parts that I've underlined as quotations. Break it up into little quotation phrases, or include the entire sentence describing her grim apartment, maybe beginning with grim apartment, drab walls, threadbare furniture, all the way through ugly curtains. So I'm going to make a statement, an inference. She's not happy with the reality of her life. And then I'm going to back it up with textual evidence. This is what it says. It says she suffered, she felt tortured, she's filled with despair. Okay? So I'm making an inference, and I'm also using support from the text, using that textual evidence to show how the author is doing that. Then you can ask the why. Why is he writing this? Why is he setting up this class tension between the rich and the poor? That might have to do with doing a little research, or just recalling a little bit about history of this time period. Luckily, each one of these texts has the year in which it was published next to the title, so you can get a sense of that. In addition to that, you get a little introductory information, typically above. It actually starts on the previous page, about Guy de Maupassant, and shows a little picture of him, very nice mustache there, and then a little bit of background information about him and his time period is included. I highly recommend reading each of those in our reading selections. But going back to the text itself, I mean, that's helpful, but when you are writing in this class, you need to rely on the text itself. You need to support your conclusions with evidence from the text itself. So, on your assignment sheet, which is on Sakai, under Resources, it says Critical Reading Responses. Those are your response journals that you'll do on our readings. In order to write those responses, I'm looking for you to go beyond just the summary of what happened in that story. I already know what happened in the story. The other readers know what happened in the story. You need to go beyond that summarization of facts and go into inferences. Okay, what inferences can you draw about this particular text or the characters or the setting, situation that we are looking at? There's numerous aspects that you can look at. You're not supposed to write about every aspect. Choose one or two aspects to focus in on. So I could be focusing in on the the issue of class tension and how this is demonstrated in particular with this woman who's not happy with the situation in which she was born, and then use the textual evidence to back it up. Um, so that's the kind of work that I'm looking for with your critical reading. Reading the text, reading the subtext, what it's not saying. Text is literal, what does it say? Subtext, what it's not saying. Those are the inferences you draw based on the words and things on the page. You make those inferences. And then also context. What is the situation? We talked about it being 1884. What do you know about that time period? What do you know about women's place in society during that time period? So bringing all those things together to make a commentary, your own critical interpretation. Okay, so again, looking at the critical reading response assignment sheet, it says looking for the big ideas. What are your interpretations? What conclusions can you make? What assertions can you make? And backing it all up with specific textual evidence, such as grim apartment, drab walls. She was born as if by error of destiny. So that's the kinds of things that I'm looking for when you're reading, and also questioning, okay, basically overall, what is the author doing? How is he or she doing it? And why? What is the purpose? Okay, well, I'm finished with this short demonstration on reading and annotating a text, close reading and annotating a text. I will do another recording of close reading a poem in about a week, because that requires a different set of skills, and so I'll do another demonstration for that. Thank you for your time and attention, and best luck with your readings.